All right, so per you all's request, or at least one of you all's request, I will be making this analysis today on Shanquella Robinson's case, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing her name. But I want to utilize her as a reference point today to encourage you all to not accept any invites from someone who has displayed signs of envy in your life. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into this video. So, for those who aren't familiar with Shanquella's case, I believe it happened either during the pandemic or maybe a little bit after the pandemic, possibly even a little bit before. So, forgive me if I'm mixing up the timeline of this case. However, Shanquella ended up losing her life at the hands of individuals who she was calling friends, and they essentially lured her to travel, to leave the states, to essentially go on, I guess, this friend trip. And it was at the hands of the very people who invited her to this quote unquote friend trip that she ended up, no longer being with us. And it was at the hands of a very brutal, it appeared from the video, a very brutal physical attack. And it just made me think about the section of the book titled The Big Reveal, aka Sneak Attack. I think there are absolutely instances where we pick up on maybe some inconsistencies in someone's behaviors. And if you all are familiar with the 5 stages of envy, then you all know that's when you start taking notes. You start rallying up the troops as far as getting your ducks in a row to move differently when with someone, when they start to show those inconsistencies. However, there are some people who are really skillful at concealing their intentions until they get you to a vulnerable state, such as getting you to travel out the country with them, luring you into an event where they can essentially make you look bad in front of a group of people, etc. And I'm not necessarily sure what the backstory of Shanquella's relationship was with these people on this friends trip or this group trip. But it does appear, at least from the information that, I stumbled across, that it completely caught her off guard. She was really under the impression that these people were her friends, and that's why she trusted them enough to travel with them. And I feel like in this case, this is more so in alignment with the excerpt titled Big Reveal, aka Sneak Attack in the book, because it aligns with this feeling of shock and surprise once the person finally gets you where they want you. And I'm going to go ahead and read from that excerpt for those who aren't familiar to provide some additional context. And the section reads, "This is a tactic that often reveals someone who is envious of you and may completely blindside you, whether it be you don't know the individual or you had no idea you were on their radar. The big reveal often occurs after a sneak attack, where a known enemy or envious individual pairs up with someone who you have no idea doesn't like you or is envious of you." Now, that excerpt of the book is super significant, especially in regards to Shanquella's case, because there's a line that talks about how there are instances where you may go somewhere and you know that someone is envious of you, but it's after the big reveal, aka sneak attack, after that takes place, that you realize that there were other people who also harbored the same feelings, and it may completely blindside you. So in those instances, I strongly encourage people to take note of repeated instances, right? Because the fact of the matter is this: when something happens for the first time, we kind of can charge it to the game. A lot of us may lean more towards like the neutral side, especially when we realize that there are other parties that are present. We may realize, okay, the person who is a little bit more abrasive and is a little bit more aggressive towards us, they may be the catalyst and everyone else may genuinely be neutral. I think that's a healthy way of looking at it. But when you find yourself in a similar situation in the future and you start to see the same quote unquote neutral parties and there's no mediating, you realize that those are the people who are quick to run up to you after the event takes place to quote unquote diffuse or ask you how you feel. It could start to raise a red flag. And the reason why I say that is because, and I believe I posted a video about this some time ago, it might have even been on my TikTok, but I said you have to watch out for the people who are trying to pose themselves as the quote unquote peacemakers, because oftentimes they are the catalyst for a lot of drama, division, and confusion. And what they do is very similar to the chess metaphor in the book referenced. What they do is they use other people as pawns to do their dirty work, whether it be they want to preserve their own reputation, or maybe they feel like they can't necessarily go toe to toe with the person that they're envious of. They may feel inadequate, or they may lack the confidence to kind of carry out what the envious attack, so they allow someone else to do it. However, you have to be mindful of someone who is doing it because they want to keep their hands clean. I like to call them evolved envious persons, because they've learned how to use other people to essentially do damage on their behalf, and it's just pretty much right off into the sunset, free of accountability, free of people calling out the fact that, no, you absolutely played a part in this as well. And some people find themselves exceptionally blindsided by the attack, especially with this person that they never would have imagined harbored envious feelings towards them, because there are cases where that's the person out of everyone you extended the most kindness to. But the interesting thing about envious people is this, and there's another section in the book, there's an excerpt titled "There is No Honor Among Thieves," that talks about and further depicts the nature of envious persons, but specifically their inability to exhibit and to honor loyalty amongst their relationships across the board. So whether it be a friendship, whether it be a romantic partnership, whether it be their familial relationships, it's a consistent pattern of disloyalty, of throwing people under the bus, of using people as pawns to get what they want. So if you are coming in and you're an innocent bystander, or maybe you're not an innocent bystander, but in cases where you are an innocent bystander, it's something like a friendship, or you're just now getting to know this circle, you have to understand that you are no exception to this person's nature. And because envious people view individuals, view relationships and connections as resources, they view their relationships strictly through a transactional lens, strictly through a using people as a means to an ends lens. You have to take into consideration, envious people will be quick to actually partner with individuals that they may not like, that they can't stand in hindsight, for the sole purpose of taking down somebody who they harbor feelings of envy towards. And some people, the reason why it took them by surprise that there was another person who teamed up with someone who's a known envious person versus this other person that you may not have detected those signs, or at least not as easily, it may have blindsided you, because you're just like, wait a minute, how are you partnering with this person to tear me down? And just 2 days ago, you were talking about them like a dog to me. Well, when it comes to understanding an envious person and their character, their traits, you have to understand that they don't care about anybody. And they definitely do not care about a person who elicits feelings of envy within them. And for those who frequent this channel, you all know that I'm constantly talking about the relentless nature of envious persons. And in this case, it's no exception. If an envious person has to partner with somebody that they do not like, that they can't stand, that they also view as a means to an end, so be it, as long as they fulfill the agenda of eliminating the threat. And there's also another section in the book titled "Eliminate the Threat" that goes into this dynamic, or how this plays out in detail. So don't make the erroneous assumption that somebody who is getting up under you and they're gossiping about other people is trying to establish a genuine connection with you, or they're showing some kind of trust. You have to watch out with envious people. They're very calculated. The reason why they will be so, persistent and resilient with trying to pursue you and gain association with you is because they're trying to tear everything that you've built down. They are essentially trying to pose an attack to your well-being, to your advancement. This is all a part of their envious agenda. Versus the person that they're gossiping about, the reason why they can keep it surface level and they don't mind just talking about that person is because realistically, that person doesn't elicit feelings of envy. They may elicit feelings of dislike. They may elicit maybe some fleeting feelings of competition, but they haven't reached a full-blown state of envy regarding that person. So be mindful of, making the mistake of assuming because someone is constantly trying to associate themselves with you, attach themselves to you, talk with you, that means that they're safe, or that means that you are, in a greater stance with this person versus the individual that they're gossiping about. Because with the envious person, it typically is the exact opposite. So in those instances, that's essentially about, reflecting on and implementing some kind of corrective strategy after you realize you've been invited somewhere only to be attacked, only to be, kind of ganged up on in a group setting, or talked about, put in a compromising position, etc. I want to read a section, an excerpt in the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, though, that helps you get into the habit, or essentially the goal is to help us get into the habit of assessing for certain red flags ahead of time so that we can decline these invitations preemptively rather than in a reactive manner. And the excerpt is titled The Insidious Invitation, and it reads, Envious individuals often employ strategies to gain insight into their targets, carefully gauging the best attack mode. Invitations, enthusiastic or flattering, must be scrutinized before acceptance. These individuals use compliments or suggestions to engage with you more closely. However, they aim to push you out of your comfort zone, lower your defenses, and analyze what drives or influences you. Such invitations also encourage you to inadvertently reveal how you conduct yourself and who you align with. All of this information is used to craft an effective strategy against you. So in sum, babes, what this analysis is getting at with our beautiful muse, Shanquella, is no matter how enticing, no matter how flattering, no matter how appealing the invite may be, when someone has displayed any inkling of envy or any kind of inconsistencies, sometimes it's in our best interest to just simply decline the invitation, because it's in declining that invitation that we can avoid a dangerous outcome. All right, babes, that's all that I have for this analysis. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. But of course, I want to hear you all's comments, your perspectives, your opinions, and even your personal experiences with situations like this in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one. Take care, babes.